Good afternoon and welcome. Oh, we got a little feedback. I'll just remind folks to please make sure your sound is muted on your laptop if you have your laptop up. Good afternoon and welcome everybody to our September 14th regular board meeting. It is 5 o'clock and we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you to Dr. Stubblefield, board colleagues for all being here, staff. Thank you for joining us. All of our staff and community members who are watching either via Zoom or on YouTube. Glad to have you with us this afternoon as well. Lots to get covered, so we'll go ahead and get started. Before we do, I will read our board norms and protocols as we do at every board meeting. The board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So with that, Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, present.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, present.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'd now entertain a motion to approve tonight's amended agenda, and just to call to your attention, the reason we are amending the agenda is we added a contract item number Q under the consent agenda, so it is an amended agenda. Would entertain a motion to approve tonight's amended agenda.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on with our agenda, first on the agenda is I'd entertain a motion to open tonight's public hearing for our 2021-2022 budget.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we are now in our public hearing for the budget. Would now open the floor for comments on our budget. Ms. Page?
Yeah, Mr. Lopez, I have a concern, and this was brought to us at our last board meeting about transportation, and I know the district is working, but I'm concerned because, again, we don't want our constituents to think that we don't care. We do. This is not to say that we don't care. We do. But we got to show that we're concerned, and I know we're working on things, but I hate to think that we have young ladies and young men who are walking a good distance, and some of the areas don't have sidewalks. We found that there are a lot of predators in those areas and other things. So my concern is, can some of the money allotted for transportation, we're not using because we don't have enough drivers, and we're all confronted with that, and we're working on that. I know we are. But can some of that be used to purchase those minibuses so we can get these kids to and from school safely? I'm just asking. I don't know the protocol, how this works. I'm asking, can we consider that?
Thank you, Ms. Page, for the question, and I'll hand it to Dr. Stubblefield. And you're absolutely right, though. I think we all are concerned about the safety, and transportation has come up, and we do want to make sure it's being addressed. And I know staff is working to address some of the questions and challenges, and staffing definitely is one of those. But I know staff leadership is looking at creative ways to address those, but I'll make sure, Dr. Stubblefield, if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, and Dennis or Greg can correct me if I'm wrong. If the dollars are allocated for transportation, and we have been, I don't think we have to like specifically say what or how. We have been working creatively to come up with some solutions. We are able, for those students and our students in all our middle schools, we have added an activity or late bus, and anyone who lives 0.8 miles or further, we are allowing them to ride the late bus currently. I did speak with transportation, and once we're able to fill all of our unfilled positions, we can make the determination if we can do the same thing on the front end, because it's, I believe, 5 buses that do it in the afternoon. But right now, we just don't have the drivers. So we can continue to explore solutions like that and see. We've talked to some of the people that we contract with, and they don't have the capacity, but it doesn't mean that we can't explore non-traditional options. Like, I'm not really familiar with the public bus that people use, but I don't know if they have the capacity, if we target certain areas to pick up at certain stops, but that's something we definitely can ask and see what the cost is and bring that back and forth. But we are trying to explore options. We just are short drivers, so we can't do what we're doing in the afternoon, in the morning currently, because we don't have enough drivers to fill the routes that we actually are scheduled for.
Well, I understand that, but we still have the issue, because I don't know if these kids are coming to school. A few of them are raised by their grandparents. They don't have cars, and the issue is how they're getting there in the morning as well as in the evening. And I know we have those vans that I see at a lot of our schools for some of the kids who are homeless, and we do outsource that with the company. So I guess my question is, why can't we do that for these kids?
They don't have the capacity for the number of the kids, so with our students who are homeless, it's a specific number, and they're picking up, fewer kids. But when you think about the number of kids, and we can use Carl B. Bruce as the example, that previously rode buses, those is not enough drivers and vans to actually do that. So we would either have to target a specific spot, but they don't have the capacity, because we have had conversations with them. But we are continuing to explore if there are any options. But honestly, right now, the primary focus is to try to fill the openings that we have, because we currently have staff in various positions like maintenance and the supervisors, and they're all out driving routes while we're trying to backfill some of the open positions that are needed for the regular the routes that are currently developed based off of the criteria.
And then I know in some other districts, they changed the times so they could accommodate and make sure that they're able to pick up everybody. So I know there's some solutions, but I just feel bad that our kids are in a dangerous spot, and I would hate for something to happen. And I'm not saying we're not trying, so please, I don't want to be misquoted. I'm just concerned about these kids, to make sure that they have a way to and from school safely. Because right now, they're walking down Parallel. There are no sidewalks, and we've heard this, I'm not going to repeat it again, but just concerned to say, let's make sure we do something for these kids. And we have money. I don't think that's an issue, it's just finding the people, but let's not forget.
Thank you, Ms. Page. And yeah, just to support what Dr. Stubblefield mentioned, and to your point, we're looking and trying to find solutions, out-of-the-box solutions. What can we do differently? What are we doing well? What can we do more of to try to support and take care of those transportation issues? So thank you for asking that question. It sounds like staff is really looking into that to do what we can. And to the point, I mean, that budget line item is there, and it can be used. However, Best Transportation thinks that they can use it to support our students and transport those students as needed. But thank you for your comment and questions. Floor is open for further comments on the budget. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the 21-22 budget.
So move.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Before I make my vote, don't you usually have discussion when you have a motion?
Yes, I'm sorry. Was there, yes, you are right. Is there
Well, I was
further?
making the same comment I made when we brought it up, that I would have thought the board would have sought ways to cost save and use at least pinpoint the 89 million that we're getting in federal dollars instead of assigning some of these expenditures. And so I didn't support the budget then, and I don't support the budget now, because I do not believe, one, and we know this for a fact, raising the LOB process violated state statutes. The budget is inflated, and that because of a county maneuver, you can manage not to raise the mill, but when you raise the LOB, maybe not this year, but it will go up. So saying the taxes are not going to increase is misleading in my opinion. So I do not support this budget, and I do believe the public needs to know. So thank you.
Thank you. Is your vote yes or no to close the public hearing on the budget?
Yes to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Yeager?
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now entertain a motion to open the public hearing to exceed the revenue neutral rate for the 2021-2022 school year.
So move.
I second it.
Moved in second. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. I'd open the floor for comment on the revenue neutral rate. Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the revenue neutral rate for the school year.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions, discussion? Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Would now entertain a motion to approve or adopt the revenue neutral resolution.
So move.
Second.
Moved in second. Are there questions or discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the 2021-2022 budget. And I will ask Dr. Stubblefield if there's anything you need to share on this. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, no.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we will come to our community comment section. And a reminder, if you would like to make a comment, the policy is up on the board docs. Anyone is welcome to make comments. Comments must be held to 3 minutes or less. If there are documents you would like to share with the board, you can make 7 copies or 8 copies, I'm sorry, and we can pass those out to all of our board members. Again, you have 3 minutes to make your comments. Thank you. So first on our agenda, we have Brenda McDonald. Want to make sure, is Ms. McDonald here?
She's not going to be able to attend today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Page. And Ms. McDonald, if you'd like to be placed on a future agenda, please just contact our board clerk and we'll make sure to get you on there. Next up, we have Mr. Craig Kruger. Mr. Kruger here. Thank you. Please come forward, sir. If you would give us your name, state your address and phone number for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Craig Krieger. My address is 745 Reynolds Avenue, KCK. My phone number is 920-851-8032.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kruger. Can we go ahead and start the timer for Mr. Kruger, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, staff, and community stakeholders. Thank you for taking the time tonight to hear 2 policy recommendations that I bring before the board of directors. This year, I have 2 foster sons attending J.C. Harmon High School. Based on their experiences as students, our family experiences with the district, and my professional training and expertise, I would like to offer 2 policy recommendations, which I'll outline here, but I've also included a 1-page handout to all of the board members. The first policy recommendation I have is in relation to the literacy training and preparation of building and district leaders. Administrator preparation programs in most states do not require training in the science of reading instruction. And while the most effective remedy to this knowledge gap would be at the state level, I think there are some things that USD 500 could adopt building-wide. In my literacy training at the University of Virginia, I've come across 4 texts which outline approximately the last 50 to 60 years of research on the science of literacy. And I think that these texts would create the foundational background knowledge for all of our school leaders as they step into roles where they make decisions regarding literacy instruction. So I would encourage the board to adopt a policy incorporating that into the training program for administrators. Second policy recommendation I have is in relation to student behavior and learning environments in USD 500 schools. Children from hard places often learn to substitute behaviors for words in order to get their needs met. Violence, including the fighting that we've experienced at J.C. Harmon this year, will not be resolved as long as the district is not using trauma-informed, attachment-based approaches to managing student behavior. 2 recommendations I have are included on the handout as well. Both of them are research-based, trauma-informed, and attachment-based methods of coaching students to behavior success, which in turn gives them the success they need academically. Adopting either of these programs district-wide would make our schools safer and would also improve student outcomes in class and after high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. I would just ask if you don't mind emailing this document. It looks like there are a couple of embedded links, and I
Yes.
would like to just look into those. If you don't mind just emailing that to, if you would email it to the full board or to myself, and we'll make sure we get it circulated to everyone.
I have shared electronic copies of that and my CV establishing my professional background with the board clerk, and I can send those out
Great.
after the meeting tonight.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll continue with our agenda. Next up, Dr. Stubblefield.
Good evening. I just have I have a few things that I just want to provide a quick update on. As I mentioned earlier, as far as transportation is concerned, I just wanted to publicly share. We started the year with approximately 33 vacancies, and recently we were able to hire 13 new drivers, but it takes anywhere from 30 to 45 days for them to be on the road and driving. So we currently have 20 openings, and if anyone is interested in joining the district as a bus driver, we encourage you to apply on our website. I also just want to remind our parents in our community that the Kansas State Legislature passed House Bill 2134, which prohibits schools, districts from offering more than 40 hours of remote learning to any student enrolled in person learning with the school district. Because this legislation took effect We will not, as a district, be able to go remote with the entire district based off the number of positive COVID tests. We continue to work with our families and our staff to offer a safe environment through our mitigation strategies. I do want to remind our families that there is an upcoming vaccination event on October 2nd that which will take place at J.C. Harmon High School. In addition to COVID-19 vaccines, the health department will also offer flu vaccines and sports physicals. This is a reminder that the health department will be offering the Pfizer vaccine, which is 2 doses, as well as Johnson & Johnson. So we encourage all of our families to come out and community to come out for that event to receive a vaccination on that day. If you need a ride, we also have that covered. KCKPS Transportation Services will provide for those who are 5 years old and older. There will be bus routes leaving different places, and you can visit our district website for more information. I had the pleasure of joining Mr. D. Pasquale before the Wyandotte and Ruskin High School football game last Friday, and I just want to again thank the D. Pasquale Moore Law Firm for their generous donation of $25,000 to KCKPS to support our football programs. I also want to remind our families that the Household Economic Survey, we're asking everyone to please complete that survey. I want to remind all of our parents that this is important to our funding, and it does directly impact our class size and how much federal and state dollars that we receive in order to provide our education to our students. I have the honor of attending and participating in the September 11, 2001 memorial ceremony at Washington High School last Friday, and the Corps of Cadets and the staff of Washington High School did an amazing job of honoring and remembering those who lost their lives. And finally, I want to congratulate Mr. Bang Thao. We celebrated 40 years of service to the KCKPS district. This does not mean he's retiring. He's continuing to work with us, but wanted to take the time to thank him for his commitment to our students and our staff at KCKPS. It was a pleasure meeting his entire family. And then I want to thank Ron Simmons and the print shop, Mindy Danbury and Wayne Carell for taking the time to celebrate this important milestone and to appreciate Mr. Dow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Just a few comments as well. I'd like to just give a shout out and thank you to the DEI and KCKPS equity cohort who met just a little while ago this afternoon to talk about some of the equity work happening in our district, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of that conversation. I know Ms. Page has also joined me in some of those meetings, so just want to say thank you for that ongoing work and for all of our staff that continue to push equity in our district. It's something that we will continue to work on, so just thank you to that group that continues to meet and do that hard work. One of the things that they mentioned, and I'll just bring up, is recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month as we enter Hispanic Heritage Month this week. Just want to celebrate the diversity that is within our district. It is one of the most beautiful things that our district has is the diversity, the languages that are spoken, the diversity within our community. It makes KCKPS and Wyandotte County so special. So we celebrate with all of you as we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month this month. Would like to also thank all of you, board members, staff, and community members, and distinguished guests who joined us for the Kansans Can Tour with Commissioner Randy Watson last week. It was a great conversation and dialogue and a great opportunity to learn, so we appreciate all of you who took part in that, who helped prepare that. I know our communications team, Mr. Edwin Birch and his team did a great job to prepare everything, so just thank you to all of you. It was a great welcoming for Mr. Watson and the work that we're doing here, and KCKPS definitely came out, so thank you to everyone who participated in that. Also, like Dr. Stubblefield, like to just thank all of the board members who attended the memorial service at Washington High School, the Corps of Cadets, and all the staff, our KCK Police Department. We had definitely visitors from all over the area. It was just a beautiful service and a beautiful memorial and just a great way to honor all of our servicemen and women. So to all of you who have served, we thank you for your service. We thank your families as well, and just it was a beautiful service and memorial from our students and staff. So thank you for that. I think that's all I have, and yes, Ms. Drew.
I just wanted to let board members know that, that I attended the Kansas Association School Board Legislative Committee meeting on August 28th, and we talked about various topics, and I have emailed each of the board members the minutes from the meeting that we did have in conversation. But publicly, we talked about constitutional responsibilities, public funding for education, goals for improving education, particularly with the high school graduation, making sure that our students are academically prepared for post-secondary education. We talked about social emotional growth, kindergarten readiness, and foundational support for improving education. And I also want to acknowledge that when we had our opening for the school district at Wyandotte High School, and I was really impressed with the shirts that most of the staff were wearing on Rebound, Renew, and Reimagine. And I ran into a lady named Charlesetta Jackson, who is working at New Chelsea, and she invited me over to New Chelsea. I met the principal, Ms. Robertson, and the secretarial staff, Ms. Munoz, Ms. Vasquez, and Ms. Jackson, and the assistant principal there. But they had me walk through the building and see the students who were engaged in working, and I was very grateful to be able to do that. I didn't go into the classrooms, but just walk through the halls and watch how engaging the students were. So much so that they gave me a T-shirt with those 3 focus words on it, and I told them that because I was appreciative of that, I am wearing the shirt today in honor of New Chelsea Elementary School, and I'd just like to say thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. The same day, Saturday, August 28th, the KASB board met jointly with the legislative committee first, and then individually secondly, the afternoon. Already told you that we're working on a equity policy, and likewise encourage everybody that the deadline for registration of the conference is October 22nd. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Ms. Humphries?
Yes. It's already been mentioned about the wonderful ceremony that the Washington cadets had Friday. And I talked with a couple of community members that have looked forward to coming to that every year because they admire our students and what our students accomplish. So I wanted to thank those community members for coming and supporting our students. And then Friday night was my first football game for almost 2 years. And the community came out and supported our kids so well Friday night. Washington-Sumner game, it was, and we all know Janie's not a sports person, but I like to see our kids enjoying themselves and see their family and community supporting them. So thank you to the community for doing that. It was a wonderful time to see. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. One last thing I failed to mention when we were speaking about diversity. I really want to say a big thank you to our school district, our leadership, and our staff. Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools is now equipped with Proprio One to answer all languages at every school building. So regardless of whatever language you speak, if you enter one of our buildings, we have the technology, the tools, and the staff to help make sure that you can communicate in the language of your choice. So I just want to say thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Thank you to your team. Thank you to Student Services for putting in all the work and time to make sure that that happens, especially in a district that has over 70 languages spoken, in a community where we have so many different languages spoken. It is truly important to make sure that we make language accessible to all of our students and families. So thank you for making that happen, and that's a great thing that we can provide. So thank you. All right, we will continue with our agenda. Next up, we have Ms. Crystal Watson with an update from our Foundation of Excellence. Ms. Watson, thank you for being with us today, and I know you're going to bring the energy, and we always love it, so thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Yes.
Well, I guess I better not disappoint. Good evening, Board of Ed and everyone out there in Zoom land and here in the building. Our update today, not much change other than I am going to make a special request after I give you some numbers here. From July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, the Kansas School Foundation for Excellence awarded $60,500 worth of scholarships to 30 students. And, Woo, woo. Woo, woo. All right, and we have given $21,867 through our We Care, We Act program, and that serves approximately 200 people. So the We Care, We Act, it provides, those were funds that we were given through the COVID relief funds, and those funds help families with rent, utilities, what have you. So that's been very beneficial for our families. We do that in partnership with Student Services, and the majority of those funds support all families under the McKinney-Vento Act. All right, on September 23rd is a meet and greet, and that is in partnership with the Justice and Equity Coalition. So our own Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Kenise, will be available there, as well as the Equity Coalition. It's a special committee that is here within Wyandotte County. This event will be sponsored by Newkirk and Novak Construction, and so that will be at the Legends rooftop. And it will be outdoor. It will not be a very large gathering, so we're trying not to contradict what we're trying to do here within the district and being COVID safe. But of course, we want to be able to introduce our own superintendent. The community there have been several events for her, and I don't feel like there's nobody to invite. But we're still going to host this anyway. Is that all right? So we hope that the board will be able to attend, and I'll make sure that you all receive an email invite. And then on October 6th is the State of the District Address. That will be online, so we will have it online. It'll be a hybrid. And then on November 11th will be the Reasons to Believe. And so here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be announcing, but I think I'm going to announce it here at the Board of Ed. So at the next Board of Ed meeting, we will announce who all of the Reason to Believe honorees are. Woo! All right. So those are all of our former graduates here in KCKPS. So the last thing is, this whole month, we have been asking for, it is our special month. In this month, the foundation was created back in 1990. And so there's a campaign going on. And so all of our employees have received or should have received, as well as the community at large, a request to make a donation. So I am just asking everyone in the community and all internal staff to please consider giving to the foundation. We do this in this month, and then we'll also do it in March. In March, it's strictly internal, but I'm making that plea that you all think about even just $10 can make a difference. We are trying to use those funds to build up our capital for teaching and learning grants and community enrichment grants. And those grants will be awarded for any employee within the district that is involved in any community groups that support our school kids, or teachers who need it for the classroom. So without your support, it makes it difficult for me to go out into the community and ask businesses to support us when we can't support ourselves. So your support is vital to the growth of the foundation and us soliciting other contributions from some of the companies here in the community. So that is my report. Are there any questions?
Ms. Watson, I would just ask, isn't the Reasons to Believe scholarship closing on September 30th? Is that still the case?
Yes.
So seniors still have a couple of weeks
Until
to
the
apply.
September 30th to
Right.
get theirs in. And please let me make a note. I'm so glad you said that, Mr. President. McInerney Van Cleve is providing the scholarship. So thank you, McInerney Van Cleve Law Firm. They are providing that scholarship, and we'll be recognizing them at the event.
Thank
How
you,
much
Ms.
is that
Watson.
scholarship worth?
It's $2,500.
25,000?
100.
25?
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Attorney Goheen, 25,000. There's still time.
We encourage all of our seniors to apply. That you can visit the foundation website to get more information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
Appreciate you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will hear a report from Ms. Carol Levers about our libraries.
Good evening, Board,
Good evening.
Dr. Stubblefield, members of our community. I don't have a report this month, but I would like to share with you pertinent dates for this month of September. And, okay, something happened. We will be celebrating the 16th annual Lawson Roberts Butterfly Festival this Saturday, coming from 10 o'clock to 3 p.m. At the Mr. and Mrs. Ethel Schlegel Environmental Library. And this program obviously is made possible by donations from the Lawson Roberts Memorial Fund. We would like to invite the board, and the Lawson family will be there as well. We have 6 schools who's registered to come next week, and they will be taking part in classes and learn about the migration and also the life cycle of our butterflies, the monarchs. So we would like to see some of our board members there. That will be great. And I would like to share with the board too, each year we have a book preview. We invite the publishers, all the publishers that we deal with, to provide copies of new books for the new year, and so that our library staff, all librarians, as well as school staff who have libraries in their classroom, to come out and see what the new year, what the books will be for the new year, and so that they could order them and also speak to publishers. So that will be, usually we have it downstairs, but unfortunately we couldn't have, it was all booked out. So we will have that at the main library. So we invite you all, September 22nd, to the main library auditorium to take part in that, and it'll be during library hours. And then the following week, following Saturday, we have our 6th annual Library in the Park, and that will be in the Huron Park, just behind our library. We will have music. We will also feature a local author, Christy Nersheimer, who will be signing her book there, and each one will receive a signed copy when you come to the Library in the Park. Also at the event, we will have a book sale. We haven't had a book sale in many years, and we will be selling book bags for $5, and you can fill that book bag with all the books you can and walk away with the books. So please come. Or our items, we will be selling $1 per item. Movies will be $1, CDs were $1, and obviously we need cash only. We'll also, at the Library in the Park, we're going to have the vaccination van as well. We're trying to see whomever comes and visit will be able to be vaccinated as well. Then, I'm not sure if any of the board members remember, about 8 or 9 years ago, the library connected with a library in China. And we haven't done that in many years because of the 14 hours difference. They want us to do it again. We haven't set a date yet, but we were contacted by the Croatian library. And the reason being, KCK is a sister city of Croatia. And the mayor contacted me and wanting to find out whether we could collaborate with their library. So for a couple of months, we've been doing that. And we will be meeting on September 27th at 9 o'clock in the morning, which will be 4 o'clock in Croatia. And those librarians and our librarians will communicate. And we would love to have board members on that call as well. We will send out a Zoom, whomever's interested. Please email me, call me, and we will send you a link so that you could be part of that as well. And we will have our mayor on there as well, so that our mayor could welcome and greet them, and they will have their mayor do that in return. So please this is going to be a busy September, and I thought I'll rather just spend some time in sharing all this with you. Last but not least, we will have another author. She will be visiting us December 2nd, but in the meantime, this is the book that the community is going to do read aloud, and it will start October 7th. So I've given all the members a copy, but I would encourage you to please, again, go on our website and email us that you will take part in this so that we could send the link to you, and you can be part of the once a week from October 7th to December 2nd. We'll be reading for an hour during lunch hour, but December 2nd, obviously, we'll use that same link in order to share with her. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levers. Next on our agenda, do we need to move to accept the report from the library?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now accept the motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion or questions? Not Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next is on the agenda is new business.
So this is just a reminder that items under new business are all written reports, so I just will go through each one just to see if there are any board questions or discussion around these items. And the first one is the Microsoft Identity Managed System presented by Rashid Hoda. Are there any questions regarding that item? If not, we'll move to B, Lakeshore Class Consultants from Early Childhood. Any questions regarding that item? Item C, Building and Long-Term Sub-Benefits from HR. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. In your response, you noted that essentially, and I asked Ms. Tishman about this before, teachers reported that when then a substitute keyed in, they then were under the impression they had their class covered. The next morning, perhaps, that same substitute canceled and went to another assignment. I don't understand the response you gave us.
So, and I copied that response from Ms. Folks, and Ms. Tushman is in here. I believe that they can't change it without talking to someone in HR. Is that correct, Ms. Tushman? That is correct. And what was shared to me on the backside, because I asked the question, is with the given shortage of subs, they're faced with the decision of the assumption they need them to cover somewhere. I'm not saying, and Ms. Tushman may be able to elaborate on that. So I think people are saying, well, I'm not going to work, and then they're putting them in another spot. But that's how I interpreted what was shared with me.
So is that what is now happening? Because it didn't happen last year. That's again, if teachers know that, then
Yeah.
that concern may not come back up.
Yeah. So I don't know if that happened last year. Ms. Tushman, do you know?
I don't know. I mean, if we had some scenario you want to present to me, I can get you an answer. I just don't know.
Remember last year I reported to you during the coffee conversations that Mr. Lopez and I were attending,
yeah.
that situation was revealed, and they asked that I tell HR. So that occurred according to teachers last year. So I'm just circling back, and you're saying that this year the process is different.
And that was what was shared with me.
Okay.
And so that is what I understand. If that's different, I will send something out and confirm that.
I just
I'll
think
confirm.
teachers need to know,
I
so
agree. So I
I
think-
can circle back with those that
shared
we
it with you.
spoke
Okay.
with.
Mhm.
But that was what was relayed to me to relay to administration.
Okay, so, and we'll double check too, but that was the response that Cynthia gave. So maybe, I think they put a stopgap in there somewhere.
Okay, great.
Item D, the Kansas Jump Utility Management Program. This is the only item that we're actually asking the board to approve tonight due to the deadline of September 30th in order for us to receive the credit of $106,000, $366,000.09 based off the utility bill that we originally paid in February. And the reason that is on here tonight is because there was some disconnect and transition of superintendents, and so I got the information last week. Otherwise, we would have brought it to the board to review at the previous meeting.
And Mr. Goheen, I think is this the one that has that you'd like to explain a little bit further?
Yeah,
for
so
us?
the only issue that we have is that because it's a settlement negotiated agreement that was done on a class action basis, it's not a contract that we were able to weigh in on or make any changes to. The contract does not make reference to what's referred to as the Kansas Form DA 146A, which by statute is included in any contract entered into by the school district. That contract protects the school district. It's part of Kansas law. Provisions in that contract potentially could be waived, or in that form could be waived if the board passes a contract unanimously without reference to it. So my recommendation is that when you pass it, that at least one board member vote no, so that you can, for the reason that the DA 146 is not in the contract. And that should automatically, by statute, put the form into the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Goheen. So you entertain a motion to approve the settlement agreement and release.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion or questions? Not Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, no.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And the final item under new business is the curriculum and instruction DigiCoach report. Are there any questions regarding that particular item? Yes.
And thank you again, Dr. Stubblefield. During the prep agenda meeting, we had the initial discussion. Subsequently, we have received information that we requested about how other entities used it. What I didn't see, and please help me to find it, Ms. Clark asked a question, in essence, this is not a direct quote, did this replace the evaluation tool? And so my comment during that time, when you responded, the Marzano walkthrough essentially, my question is, what is the first, how does this then, does this interact with that evaluation tool number one? And if that walkthrough process was not performed according to standards, what guarantee is this. What guarantee is it built in, or what's the guarantee?
Yeah, so does it interact directly, like crossing over with? No, it's a separate data collection format, so no, it does not, because it is used to inform professional development and coaching and feedback, so it wouldn't show up on their evaluation or on the eye observation with Marzano. I cannot speak to like past practices around accountability, or if the Marzano was being done with Fidelity, but we do plan to put in like some checkpoints, accountability measures, and to have some expectations around that. So that's the only thing that I can offer. I will say this year, in regards to the evaluations, we are being more intentional about, the first deadline is coming up in November. So Dr. Campbell has spoken directly with IAOs about reminding principals and doing some checkpoints, some checks and balances there, and we'll work with HR to see if those things are completed. Myself, Dr. Campbell, and some other HR, we can view all the observations to see if they are happening, so we will intentionally do that this year. And we also, I yesterday spoke with my cabinet members about each one of their departments to remind them of the evaluations and the deadlines around that. And so that's just a part of my own personal practice, but that's all that I can offer in the space. I don't really know historically what was done or how it was done, or the accountability measures around ensuring that the evaluations occurred.
Well, first and foremost, I don't expect you to. It's not possible
Right.
for you to know the historical background. I'm stating it, and I can't state it without it being factual. So that's given, that's baseline. Now, I appreciate your comment. I don't think I heard the, there's no, for lack of a better word, there's no consequence for not performing. We don't get the reports anymore. We don't get any feedback. At that point, when we did, is when the observation was that the walkthroughs were not taking place. So I'm just going on the record as saying, if this $100,000, is that the cost of it?
Yes.
If this management walkthrough tool is successful, that's great. But you still haven't addressed what is required, and that's evaluation. This is very important, the feedback, because if there's no proper delivery or classroom management, there's no learning. We get that. But also, evaluations are required.
Absolutely.
And according to the handbook, we're also responsible. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Stolper, I had a question. I saw, because my question was, what other districts are doing it? And I saw where Lawrence. So could you speak to that?
Yes, so we probably started using DigiCoach in Lawrence about either 2 or 3 years ago, and we used it as a supplement similar to what we are planning here to collect information and do walkthroughs around our professional development, our strategic plan initiatives. And we also were able to use it last year when our students returned to see the fidelity of our COVID mitigation strategies being done. And what it did was, at the district level, provided us information around all of those initiatives to see where were the things happening on a consistent basis. We were also able to see how often principals or instructional coaches or other district leaders were walking through classrooms, and to see trends in areas that we either were doing well in professional development, or areas we needed to make improvements or capitalize on areas where there may have been some challenges.
And then back to Dr. Wynn's question, when you guys used it, did you try to tie it in with evaluation, or
So-
what did you do to evaluate? I mean, I know you're trying to look and give advice. That's what we need to do. So how do we work it with the evaluation, or was there a different tool or something that you used?
So in Lawrence, the evaluation tool was the Danielson framework. It's similar to Marzano, where there were a certain number of walkthroughs that had to go through, and then the different domains. But the system that was in place in Lawrence around that was similar to what I described, like HR would send out reminders. We could see if so for example, in November, there was a deadline for principals to turn in a signature sheet for all those that were due. So HR physically knew if a principal didn't turn in the sheets, or if somebody was missing, they can wrap back around. If there were unusual circumstances, there had to be like a written statement of mutually agreement between the person being evaluated and the evaluator to extend it, but the expectation was still that the evaluation was done. The DigiCoach, with the different domains around instruction and behavior management, there were particular things that showed up in the DigiCoach walkthrough that we can look at more system-wide to see if those things were happening, because was an expectation for everyone, but the evaluation allowed the principal or evaluator to have specific conversations around those things, but the DigiCoach just provided the larger perspective around what was happening in the system. And it also was a way for the teacher, in the case of teachers, to get feedback from perspectives other than their primary evaluator, and that could be used as an artifact from the teacher when they were having an evaluation conference with their evaluator, to either say, yeah, this is something that another observer said I'm doing well in, or an area that I can work on, but it could be used in that manner.
Because I think the biggest concern, we need to make sure that it's happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we spend a lot of money, and we want that for our buck, to make sure that we're getting what we're really paying for, and to make sure that there's an evaluation process, and you want it to be fair and to help someone grow. So that's the biggest thing, just trying to understand how this works, and to make sure that we're evaluating people, and then who's evaluating the evaluator, to check a good check and balance system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda are our board reports, and the first item on the agenda is an informational report about our Diploma Plus Sound Studio.
So I move that the Kansas City Board of Education accept the report as submitted by Dr. LaShonda Biblo Irving, an Instructional Improvement Officer, as recommended by Dr. Anna Stubblefield, Superintendent of Schools.
Good afternoon, Board President Lopez, Vice President Clark, Superintendent Stubblefield. I'm Dr. LaShonda Bilbo Irvin, and I'll be presenting the informational item tonight for the Audio Engineering Certification Program, along with Lauren Clay, our Diploma Plus coordinator. We have talked about KCKPS and our involvement with the Real World Learning Initiative with Kaufman. And Kaufman, by 2030, is asking all school districts to have students, 100% of their students, graduating with market value assets. And just a reminder what those market value assets are: work experiences in the form of internships and client-connected projects, college credit, industry recognized credentials, entrepreneurship experiences, and emerging MBAs. And so earlier in the summer, we had an opportunity to have a couple of board members join us in conjunction with Kaufman for Professional Development, to listen to all of the wonderful things happening across school districts in terms of high schools and getting our high schools ready for real world learning. Just to look at the market value asset here in KCKPS, last year, even though our students were not in school, all school year. Still looking, we were able to collect data, what our students had. 66 students participated in work experiences through the pandemic. 730 students received college credits. 55 students received industry-recognized credentials, and 33 students participated in entrepreneurship experiences. This work, the work of Kaufman, the work of market value assets, is aligned to our KISA and strategic plan. So our strategic plan, theme number 2, object 1, increase opportunities for secondary students to explore careers and prepare for college. This is exactly what the Sound Engineering Studio program will do. And also our KISA outcomes, post-secondary success, and the individual plan of study. If you look here at the Naviance Career Interest Survey, which ties into our individual plan of study, these survey results and data for our students in middle and high school. And if you look, highlighted in the blue, arts, audio, video, technology, and communications, this is the area that the Sound Engineering Studio falls into.
Thank you, Dr. Irvin, Dr. Stubblefield, Board President, and members of the board. My name is Lauren Clay. I am the Diploma Plus College and Career Coordinator, and we are going to just take a deeper dive into this cluster that is very interested in our district. So what is audio engineering? So audio engineering is basically what we are doing right now. So how you are hearing us, how you are visualizing us. When you get in your car after board meeting and you're listening to music just to kind of get away, that is audio engineering. So this is what we want to provide for our students. So I want to point out that the employment and salary potential for our students who are graduating, who will be graduating, they are currently seniors and will be graduating, of course, this school year. This is the salary and employment potential that they will get once they graduate. So this is app developer, which is making $50,000, mixed engineering, which is making $40,000. And I want to point out audio engineering because it says $25 an hour. That is an entrepreneurial experience because these students can essentially start their own business and become audio engineers. So they can be self-employed and do this on their own. So they can make up to $25 an hour, or if they're super experienced, they can charge more. So I want to put a face to a name, and I want to introduce the instructor for this program, which should be Mr. Joseph Macklin. I believe his bio speaks for himself, that he was more than qualified to teach this class, instruct this class, and guide our students to what they need to learn in this area.
Acknowledging all the board members, thank you for this opportunity just to speak on something that's changed my life. I'm gonna speak from the heart. I'm a product of Kansas City, Kansas. I went to Hazel Grove Middle School, grade school, went to Coronado Middle School, and went to Washington High School. Thought basketball was the only thing for us, because when we grow up, that's what we think. But I grew up and I learned that there was other things that I could do with my life. Sound tech, audio engineering, music producer. And I've just been blessed to be able to do a couple things and to bring some wins back to the hometown. I've been Grammy nominated. I've worked with plenty of artists, Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, and I've also had the opportunity to sell multi-million records. So I want to be able to give the kids an opportunity, something that they could do, that they were inspired to do, that they love to do. Audio engineering, I moved to LA in 2010, and my biggest thing was LA has everything. How can I bring this back to my hometown? And from that moment on, about 2015, I had a son. The son was on the way, and I wanted to come and do something that would change the system and change everything in the city. I've been doing this audio engineer class for the last 3 years through the Full Employment Council in Missouri, through UCM, and I've had about 5 classes, and out of my 5 classes, I've had 1 student drop out, and the only reason he dropped out was because he had to take care of his family. So I've had like a 99% retention rate with my students. They're engaged. This is what they love to do. They're inspired to do this. And I'm just blessed to be able to give them some resources and to show them the correct way. They said world learning. I call it in the field learning. I see a lot of these students go out and they go to Full Sail and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and they end up in debt. I wanted to change that. I didn't want our students to end up in debt. I wanted to give them something in field. And a lot of those students that go off to Full Sail, they end up not even knowing, they end up not being able to work in the studio because they haven't had the in-field experience. So I wanted to make sure that each student that I touched, each student that I worked with was in the field, and I wanted to teach them from that aspect. So when they walked into any studio at any time, at any day, they were equipped and they can do their job. And so, once again, I'm just a product of Kansas City, and I'm blessed to be here, and thank you for this opportunity to talk with you.
Definitely try to follow that up. Okay. So we are going to take a deeper dive into the KCKPS audio engineering program. So this partnership will be through University of Central Missouri. I want to make sure I focus or point out that the initial tuition was $3,500. We were able to work with UCM and get them down to $32,500. So $3,250, which we will talk about more in the next couple of slides. So I just want to point out that we did also reach out to KCKCC. They do have a program. It is an audio engineering associate's degree. And through research within this field, we have learned that an associate's degree is not something that is required. It is something that's just kind of there. But the industry recognized credential, this certification is something that they need. So the things that they are learning in this certification that Mr. Macklin will teach them is what they need to know. We are looking at the start date of January 4, 2022. This will be a semester-long program. We will open it up to juniors and seniors. It is an AM and PM session, so we'll run like our tech students. So we have certain students in the AM and then certain students in the PM, depending on their schedule, their high school schedule. So we will have a total students of 30th semester, and it's 60 yearly, 15 in the morning, 15 in the PM. And then we also will be the first district to offer this certification. So the audio engineering program costs, the studio classroom will be located in North Central office. So I don't know if you've all been over there, but it is right next to the police department. It is right next to our Bio Plus program. So both of them will kind of be right across the hall from each other. The build-out cost will be $39,600. The studio equipment cost will be $31,000. The tuition cost annual, which I stated before, was $32.50 per student, which was originally $3,500, but we were able to work with UCM to get them down to $32.50. 60 total, which would be $195,000. So this school year, it will be a one-time cost of $70,600, which will include the build-out, which will come from the facilities operation budget, the equipment, district equipment budget, and then the tuition cost will be $87,500. That includes 30 students, and that tuition will come out of the Diploma Plus budget. So the total for for this school year, this current school year, will be $158,100. So just to circle back, that one-time cost is included, that $70,600. So going forward into the 2023 and ongoing, it will be $195,000, which will include 60 students. And that is just for now. This is something that can grow, but due to COVID, I wanted to make sure we were able to space out students in the classroom. So that tuition, like I said, will come out of the Diploma Plus budget. So this is currently what it looks like now. It is just a classroom with a divider in the middle. And if we go to the next slide, you will see what our layout and our vision for it will be. So working with Doug and his team, this is the layout for what we are looking for it to mimic. Granted, it won't look exactly like this, but this is what we are looking for it to mimic. So half of the classroom will be the studio, and the other side of the classroom will be where they learn and just kind of book study and things like that. So going into program growth, like Mr. Macklin said, there are lots of things where we can go. There are lots of areas where we can go with this. Right now, I know I'm not sure if he stated that a lot of his students do go on to do internship opportunities with local churches, technical companies, specifically with Cerner, which is a company that we already partnership with our Tech Impact program. Arenas, of course, we know T-Mobile, Hy-Vee Arena, radio stations. The good thing about this program is that we have someone that is currently in the field right now. So those connections and things like that are still fresh and still available for our students. We are also looking at after-school weekend student use because students are going to be super excited. And To fit this all in one day is going to be almost impossible. So we're looking to essentially get them to after school, use it on the weekends, and then also use it for our community, because that's, you know, the most important part. We want to make sure that our students are bringing it back to our community. The program timeline, so like I said before, we wrote a letter to KCKC to let them know what we were doing and what we were interested in. Of course, we had that conversation with them, and they do offer the associate's degree, and maybe going forward, we can have our students, if they are interested in going back to school after they get this certification, we can work with KCKCC to make that mimic their associate's degree. September 28th is when we're looking for approval. The studio build-out will be October through November. To advertise for the program to our students, October through December. Student registration, October through December. The grand opening will be in December. Classes will start in January, and the certification will be awarded in May. Questions? Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen.
And thank you, Mr. Lopez. Help me understand what you just said, that the one semester certification, and I don't know if I understand what you said. Do you mean the one semester certification equates to an associate's degree?
No, ma'am. So the one semester will equivalent to a certification. However, we can work with KCKCC to make that certification go into some of their designated classes that they say, hey, these are the classes you need to take to get the associate's degree. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I misunderstood how you framed it.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Ms. Page, did you have a question?
I had a question for the young man, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
I'm Joe Macklin.
Okay. Now, if they get this certificate, what's the job market like in this area? You moved back here. So is there a need for this? Demand, you would think, maybe on the East Coast, West?
Well, the demand is here. We have a lot of tech companies coming to Kansas City now that are moving their businesses from Los Angeles, from New York, from everywhere else to come here because it's way more affordable. And the other thing that's really a great asset is they don't just have to do audio engineering. That's just one field. And even with the audio engineering side, they can charge up to anywhere from 25. 25 is the minimum. That's $25 an hour that they could charge to go and work at any studio in the metro area. So we have, I would say we have at least 10 studios here that are looking for audio engineers right now that come to me every day asking for, we need help. We need audio engineers because they don't have any. So we have that, and then we have radio stations. They can do, so in this industry, I get paid, I'll say 5 different ways. As being a music producer, I get paid being a mix engineer, being a recording engineer, being a vocal producer, and you have sound design. You have all these things that people are getting paid from through doing things like audio engineering, and there's a big need for people, especially with sound design, audio engineering, music producers, mixing, mastering. So there is a big field for people, especially these students, to have opportunity to make a career out of this, because it's really one of those things that's kind of like taboo. When I was growing up, we didn't have this. So I had to go to Los Angeles to get it. But I'm saying, let me bring it back to where the students don't have to leave to go to the LA community or go to the New York community, and we can do that here.
So you provide them with all those skills
that
you mentioned?
Through UCM, I was able to get all of my students, they walked away with an internship. So those internships end up turning into jobs. Because like I said, when I had my students, I wanted to make sure when they walked into any setting that they were prepared. There was no lack. And each company that I brought them to, they were like, they're ready to go now. So I wanted to equip them with in-field education, I guess you would say, real-world learning, to be able to step into any setting and be prepared at that instant. So I see a lot of the students being able to cross over their internships into getting that job as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Yeager has a question.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I would love to see this built out. For example, if a junior student takes this course, how can it be built out for him or her to go ahead and transition to getting the associate's degree while still in high school and getting those college credits for us to pay for. So are there any programs that are, is there a program outline or sketch that could be presented to us to give us that additional information? Second, is the priority being given to seniors who are in their second semester for when you open it up in the spring semester? Because I can imagine there's going to be a lot of students who are interested in that. So what is the priority level of who will be taking it first? Subsequently, for the fall, is there some kind of order, that expectation? Last question. What about a radio station for the district? With all of this knowledge now, and we know industry experience is awesome, but we also know that in-house we have those audio-visual needs, especially audio needs. We have our own TV station. How can that be turned into another benefit for the district? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Dr. Yeager. So starting with the first one, when you asked about the career pathway to KCKCC for the associate's degree, they don't offer audio engineering at KCKCC, so students here will be getting the certification program. However, they do have an adult program in audio engineering that we would look at the course selection to see the courses that the kids are taking with us. Could those students receive credit towards the associate's degree at KCKCC? So I think that was your first question. Second question about students on how we determine the order. Yes, definitely preference for seniors because this is the last year for them, second semester. We will be taking 30 students, and so if 60 students apply, 30 of those students are seniors, then we definitely will be giving preference to those students. But you have to have a 2.6 GPA, you have to have a letter of recommendation for your teacher, and you have to be in academic good, attendance, good standing with your attendance. And then the last thing I think you said was the radio station. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. To see how we can use those skills to increase our coverage and reach here at the district.
So I think that that is a project that I should work with Mr. Birch on, because we do have our TV station, and I believe that he could be most beneficial to the project in branching off into a radio station.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Help me remember your reference to Cerner, since they have left Wyandotte County.
Yes, so right now, our technical impact program is our partnership with Cerner. So Cerner just, of course, released that they will not be opening back up. Their campus here will be closing. We still do the partnership. Our students work virtually with the employees at Cerner. So that's how they do their work right now. We are working right now, myself and Dr. Urban, to look at some place to essentially house the students going forward, but they're still in partnership and they still work closely with the Cerner staff.
And help me remember how you said this program could mesh with something that Cerner offers?
So yes, like Mr. Macklin says, there are more than one ways. Audio engineering is not just the only way to essentially get our students employed. I know we talked just recently that one of the students that he actually taught was actually working the switchboard for Cerner. So that was something that he essentially learned in the program. So it's not just audio engineering, it's multiple ways that students can get employed with this certification.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, sure.
I'm also teaching coding in the class as well. So that's another asset that they can go to with the class. So it's audio engineering, and I throw in coding in there. So one of my students, he got with a tech company, and he ended up, because he could code, so he knew some of the coding requirements, he could get into those tech companies that are looking for people to code as well. So I wanted to.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Page.
Yeah, you mentioned, Dr. Irving, that they needed a 2.6 grade point average, a letter of recommendation, they had to have good attendance in school. What prior skills? Because if you only have 30 slots, and maybe I've always wanted to be a DJ and I think I can, but you would have to have something. So what prior skills should that individual have before they sign up? Because I'm Mary Sue and I think I got it, but I've really never done anything.
Correct.
So that's a lot of money and we don't want to not to say that they don't deserve it, but you want to make sure. So what are the skills that I need to have?
Yes, so we currently are looking at different pathways in our high schools. I know for one, especially with our tech impact students, the partnership with Cerner, those students, we do have some juniors that participated last year that are currently seniors. Those could be of an option for those students as well. Like I said, we do have some pathways at the different high schools that we can specifically talk to those instructors and do recommendations and say, hey, look, this is the program. What type of computer classes do we have offered, especially in our pathways at our schools? So we can definitely look into that and just see kind of what they're learning, and then see how we can embed that and do that in our program. See if we can essentially add those into the qualifications for the program.
I get that, but what skills do I need to have? I mean, I didn't know if he could answer that. What skills do I need to have?
It's kind of hard to say skill-wise. I think a lot of, for myself, I could sing a little bit.
Okay.
Even though I knew nothing about audio engineering at all when I first started. I was just a kid that wanted to be an artist, right? Which I got into the studio and it just clicked with me. I'm like, I need to learn this stuff myself. So I went and got a mentor. My mentor, who's from here, from Kansas City, Kansas as well, taught me the ropes. And so it's kind of hard to put a scope on. For me, I'm looking for someone who's passionate about doing music, someone who is just serious about, and they have to have some skill set of working on a computer, of course, because this is dealing with a lot of tech. So I would like to see that be something, but just people that have passion. If they're passionate about audio engineering, recording, or being a mix engineer, or any of those things are super important to being a part of this program, I think.
Thank you.
Ms. Humphreys, and then we'll continue on. Thank you, Ms.
This is a one-semester class, correct?
Yes, this is a one-semester certification.
Okay, how many hours a day is it?
So it will run just like our tech students. So you will have the AM session, which will be 7:30 to 10:30, and then you will have the PM session, which is 11:30 to 2 o'clock.
So it covers 2 to 3 class periods, depending on how long the class period is?
Yes.
Okay. How will we ensure that the students that you enroll are meeting their other academic requirements? Because it's not just like they're taking one college class. This is essentially taking up half of their day.
So just like our tech classes, if I think I heard your question correctly, just like our tech classes, they're about 3 or 4 classes embedded into one. So during that time frame at tech, you don't get 3 college classes worth of a grade. You get 1 grade, or you get a certification at the end of that. So it's not like the college classes where you would just get college credit. It is something that's embedded, it's everything embedded into one session, and then after that session, it depends on if you pass or sort of fail. So it's just like our tech programs.
Okay. And it's through University of Central Missouri, correct?
Yes, University of Central Missouri.
And how long have they had this program?
They have had this program.
I've been doing it for the last 3 years with them.
Okay. And how will we evaluate how successful it is? Because as Ms. Page said, that's a lot of tuition for a 1 semester class. $32.50 per student. How are we going to evaluate how successful it is? And how many students have expressed interest, or have we had a lot of students express interest in this program?
So if you look back to the previous slide, I don't know if I can go back. It is the second highest interest in our district. So based on the Naviance data for the high school and the middle school, it is the second most interest cluster in our district.
And it will be open to students from all 5 high schools, or just the 4 comprehensive?
It will be all 5.
All 5?
Yes.
And how will that work with the IB program? You probably don't have that answer tonight. It's just one of the questions that I would have between now.
It does, because our students at Sumner, they also are part of our students at Sumner also attend the Tech Impact Program, which follows the same AM and PM schedule. They only attend the AM times because of their IB program.
Thank you. So, Ms. Clark,
Yeah, I just have a comment. Mr. Macklin, I just want to thank you. Being a mom of 3 young adult, 2 teenagers, I hear and I've had the conversation of studios and can I hang out at the studio? And so being able to wrap your head around the business part of it, which is what you experienced having to go out and bring it back, I appreciate this and giving that back to our students. So no matter how things land, I appreciate you having the forethought of saying, our students need this.
Thank y'all so much for this time.
thank you.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Nguyen, and then I would encourage all board members, if you have additional questions or thoughts, please, this is an informational item tonight, so please just send those questions to Dr. Bilbo Irvin and Ms. Clay, and we can make sure we get those answered to you. Dr. Nguyen?
Does this have to be approved by the Board of Regents for college credit?
So from the conversation I believe I had with Dr. Stubblefield, we have to write the letter to KCKCC and get approval from KCKCC, since that is that's the college that we get our dual and concurrent, and as long as they okay that, we are okay to go with UCM.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, and I'll like to just also thank Dr. Irvin, Ms. Clay, Mr. Macklin for the information. And just to Mr. Macklin, thank you for what you do for our community. I know coming back to KC has been something that you love and want to give back and genuinely. So just thank you for the work that you do for KC, the community, the metro area, but for Wyandotte County and KCK. Thank you so much for being here. Next on our agenda is a presentation and update from Mr. Stephen Linkus.
So I recommend that the Board of Education accept as an information item a presentation discussing vaccination status and COVID-19 testing policy language as submitted by Stephen Linkus, Chief of Staff, and as recommended by myself, Dr. Anna Stubblefield, Superintendent of Schools.
Good afternoon. There we go. Good afternoon, Board President Lopez, or I guess it's evening. Good early evening, Vice President Clark, fellow members of the board, Dr. Stubblefield. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about some steps we're taking in regards to vaccination, some ideas that have come forth in regard to policy, and also the vaccination survey that our staff just recently filled out. So just to get us started, we want to kind of see where we currently are. So this is the data up to September 3rd. And these are the number of positive COVID cases that we've had for both students and staff. So what you can see there is we've had 232 confirmed positive student cases and 49 staff confirmed positive student cases. If you look at our website tomorrow or our dashboard, that number will be different. No, I am not, giving false information, but just Wednesday's our update day. So you will see some updated numbers tomorrow as our team works together to collaborate to get that updated. Part of the masking, and masks are not going away, so I just want to be very clear on that because I know masks always come up. But it was asked about the cost of masks. So one of the things we looked at were N95, which are considered medical grade, and the cost of those, and then KN95, which are another version of those but aren't necessarily medical grade. If you look at those prices, an N95 mask is $2 each roughly. A KN95 is $1.30. And as I stated on the slide, this is a middle ground price. So there were masks, there were N95s that were 80 cents, and there were also some that were up to $2. So I kind of went in the middle just to give some ideas. But you could see what it would cost to outfit our students with those and staff. Please note that those, originally the N95s are only for one patient. When there were shortages of masks, then hospitals went to using them for the day. And it's not recommended that you use those for long periods of time, the KN95 either. So roughly, if you were to get 3 days out of those, it's a lot of money to continue to mask students and staff. To this point, the district has used over 300,000 masks, just to give an idea of what we have gone through and distributed. The current mask, that was similar to what Mr. Macklin had on, those run about 9 cents a mask. And that's why we have those when you enter school buildings, the central office, or different areas, because they are effective and they're also cost effective. In regard to the staff vaccination survey, I got the data today around 1 o'clock, and I definitely want to thank Dr. Yen To for helping us get this going. She put a lot of work into this, and Mr. Birch and his team for getting this out through Bright Arrow through both email and phones. But when we look at the numbers, we had 2,128 employees that took the survey. Of those who took the survey, 1,902, about 89%, stated they are fully vaccinated. 22 employees stated they're partially vaccinated. 42 chose not to respond. When we start breaking down who took the survey, roughly 78% of the respondents are female. 64% of the respondents are certified employees. And 69% of respondents are white. Please remember that is race, so that's not ethnicity. So you could have Hispanics that could fall under different groups in a different way. One of the questions that came up was close contact, because I do know we've had quarantines and we've had different situations that we've had to address within schools and different facilities. And this is straight from the CDC, and this is also what's on our website. So we have this specific information for our public, and so everyone can look at it. And it does give some examples there about the 15 minutes and the 10 minutes within 24-hour periods. Our quarantine protocol, one thing I do want to point out is because of CDC guidelines and their recommendations, we have gone from a 14-day period to a 10. That information was released on the 7th. I believe that was the day right after Labor Day, and if it wasn't, it was a Tuesday after Labor Day. We released that information of what was changing internally to our nurses and our building leaders on the Friday, give it an opportunity to sink in so they could look at it, and then this information was put out there. So the 10-day is different than the 14 that we were originally talking about, even last board meeting. Athletics have also come up. So one of the things we have run into, and this is just being very transparent, is team members are generally in close proximity. Based on the fact that our students are not wearing masks when participating, you are going to have people getting close together and you're going to have close contact. So we had to, unfortunately, quarantine some teams, but we have postponed games. And I want to be very clear on that language, that they weren't canceled. We did postpone. And our district athletic director, and she's actually at KCKPS tonight, so she's not here to answer any questions, but she is working hard to find replacement games for students that did miss those. And for the teams that were impacted, we actually were able to find some replacement games for them within here in the state of Kansas and within the area. We know that our president last week went out, gave a speech discussing the federal employee testing mandate. This impacts us in the sense of our Head Start and Early Head Start programs. There's a listing of some of the other federal programs that it would impact. And one of the other things, and I have that in quotations, is he is asking more states to require that school employees be vaccinated against COVID-19. So since he's asking, one of the things that we thought, and it was discussed with board members and within cabinet, was bringing some sample policies to be looked at. I want to reiterate, these are informational. We're bringing these forward for discussion, so the board can have the discussion. But the big thing with the sample policy 1, and thank you, Dr. Campbell, for working on these, is this would require all eligible staff to be vaccinated, and we use the date of November 19th. We would have to get proof on file that vaccination has occurred before this date. If not, there would be a requirement to participate in weekly COVID testing. All USD 500 staff that provide proof of vaccination will receive 5 additional sick leave days to their annual contract for the 21-22 school year. So that's one example of a policy that could go forward. A second example, no, you're not seeing things. It looks almost exactly like the previous one, but instead of requiring, this one states highly encourage. So we would not require staff to have to vaccinate, but we would highly encourage. But we would still have the requirements of November 19th as far as when vaccination proof would have to be given to the district, and the 5 days of additional sick leave that would be given to the employees for showing that proof. Policy number 3, this says highly encouraged, but could say required, just depending on what the board would like to do if they wanted to go this route. If you don't have your vaccination on file, of course, by that November 19th date, you are going to participate in weekly testing. And what we put in this is if a USD staff member tests positive for COVID and is provided proof of vaccination prior to testing positive, the staff member will not use their own sick time. What would implementation look like? So one of the things in talking to Dr. Stubblefield and also working internally within the organization, we would probably want up to about 45 days to get this rolling. It would be great if we could just, click something and have it going in a couple days, but realistically, there's a lot of logistical pieces that have to happen. One of which would be hiring the 3 health data specialists to keep track of students and staff who will be testing at our district sites. And one of the things we have looked at is this testing would happen on site. We do have partnerships. We have a number of the saliva tests. I always forget the acronym. We have those. And we do have a lab that we currently work with that gets us test results back within 24 hours. They could continue to be a partner, and we would do that. The data health specialist would be important because, let's just use the example of, we had about 50-some% of our staff fill out the survey. If we really start thinking about it, there's probably a minimum 1,000 staff members, if we're just thinking about it logically, if not more, that would have to test weekly. As you start thinking about how are we going to keep track of that, we do need staff members that are specifically set to do that job and could be in communication with supervisors, our health department, and also can be partnering with all those entities to ensure that we are getting this done. We did talk about weekly surveillance testing for athletes. The reason we identified our student athletes is because during sports participation, they won't have the mask on. So we definitely would like to do that. And as previously stated, our non-vaccinated adults will test weekly. Some benefits of this are higher numbers of vaccinated staff and students scientifically has been proven to lead to a reduction in variants. Higher numbers of vaccinated staff and students will lead to fewer quarantines and less transmission. Non-vaccinated employees and students can find out if they're COVID positive. This also allows, and this is very important, employees who are unable to be vaccinated to continue employment. We do have some employees that potentially, for health reasons, may not be able to be vaccinated. It's not a large number, but there are specific groups that could apply to. And then it also helps us find those without symptoms, or formerly known as asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic, as we're saying now. They can be identified. Here's what some of the challenges will be, though. One of the things in talking to Wichita Public Schools is when they started their surveillance testing for students, is they did have to quarantine more students initially. What they did say is, as they progressed through the program, is that less students and staff have been quarantined since they've been doing this. So they did see a spike initially, but then they started seeing numbers go down, and they've continued their testing patterns. If we do this, we would have to look to hire a health testing coordinator to lead this work. We would need somebody to specifically work with those data specialists previously mentioned, so that they're looking at the 1,500 to over 2,000 students and staff that would be engaged. And just thinking about that, as we think of our athletic programs, we do have hundreds of students seasonally, whether it's fall sport, winter sport, or spring sports, that are engaged, so we'd have to add those numbers in. And there'd be some operations pieces we'd have to coordinate, and Dennis and I and others would meet on that, and we would ensure that we'd be able to set up pickup times, work with the company that picks it up, to make sure that we have these, the samples ready so they can take them, and that we know by X p.m. or a.m. the following day the results will be available. That was a lot of information. I know that was in a short period of time, so I will now open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Linkus. And again, this is information, so we appreciate all the information, the samples that you gave. I'll open the floor for questions from board members. Ms. Humphries.
Mr. Linkus, you are going to email us
Yes, ma'am.
The updated presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I apologize because I emailed Leslie the old one, so I have the new one that I will get to you guys right after the meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Page.
Mr. Linkus, thank you all for answering the questions that I had. And is it possible what you gave us on the close contact definition, the quarantine pool protocol, if that could go out to staff? Because we're getting questions and people aren't clear. So I don't know if this is sent directly to every employee, or if it's given to the principals and their job to pass it out, because people are saying they weren't clear and they're questioning how tracing is done, because they still feel like they're in jeopardy. I'm just passing it on.
We definitely.
And they're saying they're not getting it, so what's the problem? I don't know if it goes to one person and that person is supposed to get it out because they're not getting it, and they question the person who was presenting was not clear. So we just need to be on one accord and make sure the information is clear and it's getting to everybody. So there's no misunderstanding.
I'll definitely work with the team, and we will get this out to where every employee has it. In the meantime, if employees do have questions, those specific definitions are posted on the COVID dashboard page. So we will also look at another mechanism to get this out to our staff.
Dr. Yeager?
Hi, yes, I have a couple of questions. The first one is surrounding when there was a recommendation to reward teachers with 5 days or staff with 5 additional days if they proved they had a vaccination. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that was part of some of the samples. That could be something that could happen.
Yeah, and Dr. Yeager, it's just an example of when we looked at other districts or companies of what they were doing. It's not a recommendation. It did, Dom DeRosa did share that with us, that some other districts are doing. So we just was bringing it back as, here's an example of what it could look like. But it is a way to incentivize. The other one where some districts are looking at is not necessarily incentivizing through additional days, but not necessarily allowing staff who are unvaccinated. Well, right now, and if it's work-related, it's not charged to their sick account. Some districts are charging it to their disability leave or sick leave.
And so what is our current policy?
Our current policy, if it's, if you are quarantined or test positive and it's due to work exposure, whether you're vaccinated or not, it is not charged to your disability leave. That's our current practice. I shouldn't say policy because there's not policy around it.
Right, because that's the language I had questions of, because I didn't think that we were currently requiring them to, take additional time from their own personal due to COVID. The last question I had is some of the ramifications and some of the things that we are hearing as companies and the government start recommending mandatory vaccinations is people retiring early, leaving early, deciding not to work for the company anymore. So my biggest concern is if this would be another barrier to hiring. We're already having high numbers of staffing. We already have low staffing. We already have a high number of openings in various departments. So I'm really concerned about this being another barrier to fully getting our positions hiring with our neighbor districts that, Piper, Turner, Edwardsville, Bonner would not have this requirement. So, it would be, if they did not want to get vaccinated, they could just walk over to another district essentially.
Yeah. So in both of our examples, it wasn't a requirement. It was either vaccinate or test. So they would have an option to not get vaccinated, but just they would be required to have weekly testing.
To follow up, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Nguyen. She had a question as well. I know KCPS has a policy around this. Are other districts in our area, do they have, besides KCPS, that have followed suit?
The only one I've seen is KCPS, where it's you have to test if there's no proof of vaccination. And also we're looking to, and that's why we're doing some investigation, is we would like to do on-site testing at your site. What KCPS is doing is they've expanded now to 8 sites where the testing would happen. With our partnerships with the Unified Government and with the lab CRL and their ability to pick up and our ability to coordinate with that, we're looking at the logistical pieces, and that's where to work with the operations team and also our health department internally. We would look at that and see how we would make that happen at a building level and make it more convenient for the staff member, because we also realize that we have staff members that may take the bus to work. So they may not have the opportunity to get to one of these other, if we did, say, specific testing sites. We've also talked about the idea of also having an ability to do the testing at the transportation, nutritional services, and also the NCO. And that way, we're not forcing those specific employee groups to have to go out of their way to go get tested if possible. So we're looking at all of that. As you can understand, with 48 schools and then you add additional sites, there's a little bit of logistical coordination that would happen, but that would be some of the work that when we meet with Dennis and some of the other groups, we would get figured out and then bring back to the board and say, here's what we're looking at and how we're looking at doing it.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen. Oh, I'm sorry.
The other question about other districts and where they are, I will say that other districts are starting to engage in conversations based off my communication with other superintendents. Some of them are just waiting to see what the rules or guidelines that follow President Biden's announcement, because there are certain areas, like Head Start, potentially could be impacted, like it's a federal mandate to be on buses regardless of what your district is doing. So I know other superintendents are starting to have internal conversations, and Mr. Goheen is actually going to a Q&A with Greenbush where several superintendents across the state of Kansas just to answer some questions around it.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen.
And thank you, Mr. Lopez. And so these questions, some you've responded to. I don't know if I understood your response, but you already said, Mr. Linkus, your numbers reflected 50% of the staff?
We have about 4,100 employees, so we're a little over 50%.
Okay, so is there intent to resubmit the survey, or you're just going with these numbers?
So what we're going to do is I just got these around 2:30 today, so I was able to break down some of the data. I'm going to meet with Dr. Toe, and we're going to do some data digging, some data diving, and kind of look at specifically which departments engaged at high levels in the survey. When we look and if we see, just looking at it with more than 60-some% being from our certified, it definitely tells us we got to look at which classified groups may or may not have been engaged. Okay. So then we would meet with, for example, those directors and say, what is maybe another mechanism to engage our employee group so that we get even more data so we can get a better number.
Okay, and so secondly, was there how do you explain, if you can, well, let me ask it like this. Was there a non-white box to check?
We followed what the federal government uses as far as race. So that's what was used as the boxes to check. So we used race, we did not use ethnicity.
Okay, explain to me then what boxes you had to check.
So there would be white, black, Asian, Pacific Islander, and I would have to think back to it. So it's the traditional boxes that would be on federal forms.
So the only data you received was from the only boxes that were checked white?
So for example, I'm a Latino.
No,
that's not the question.
That's the only information he presented tonight.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Oh, no, we
they could
actually-
give all the other.
We have
Just no other data.
Yeah.
There's data, he didn't include it in the report.
Oh.
I just used the largest numbers on this. So 36 or 35% of our respondents were not white.
It looked kind of weird.
Okay,
number
and I
3.
apologize for the confusion.
Number 3, did we get policy number 3? Or have we?
This was the sample policy?
Yeah.
This was added.
No.
We don't have that in
We don't
ours.
have
We'll be getting it
He needs to
afterwards.
be updated, yeah.
Good to know. I thought we weren't supposed to get the surprise. What do you know? These two I asked you, Dr. Stubblefield, I don't remember how you answered. What is an eligible staff?
Any staff member, so anybody who is employed, because we have lots of individuals that work in our schools that are contracted through agencies.
Yeah.
So this would be any staff that is a USD 500 employee. So it wouldn't matter classified, certified, hourly, or salary. That's what we were referring to. One of the things that we were going to talk to Mr. Goheen about is in our situation where we do have agencies that there are people in our buildings on a full-time status. If this were adopted by the board, what does that look like, and how do we communicate with those agencies? For this, we were specifically talking about our employees.
Okay, so, because that then leads me to the other question about vendors. People coming in here that, how do we
That was
verify?
our question.
That's another question.
For Mr.
Okay,
Goheen.
and then I guess the other question was the contract. Do we have, are all employees under contract?
No, so that language, I believe in the updated version was changed to just say employees, because we have at-will employees, and then we have some groups that have contracts and others that don't. So it really, we changed the language from
Okay.
contract to employee. Yeah.
And then if the Head Start people are mandated, do they still get the 5 days? If that is something we include?
That will be a board decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Ms. Humphries?
You had the information about the KN95 masks. What is the CDC still recommending? Regular surgical masks, fabric masks?
The language around the cloth mask is still what you'll generally see, so that's what's out there. Of course, you know, if there's a endless pot of money, I guess the N95 is a good one, but fortunately, you know, at $2 a mask, those N95s become and the KNs are just would be the next version down from the N95.
But the CDC is not recommending those for the general population, correct?
There hasn't been a specific recommendation, no.
So the disposable surgical masks that we have in our buildings are not as costly as the KNs, correct?
They're not. 9 cents a mask.
And those are CDC recommended?
Yes, ma'am. Those do meet the requirements of what the CDC has pushed forward.
Thank you. Are there additional questions, comments? Ms. Clark?
So the only thing that I have is we ran into an issue last year where people were not able to take their vacation time, if you remember. And I know that this is not firm, but if we give additional vacation time, I think we need to consider our staffing and ensuring that our staff is able to use their vacation, because we had to kind of come up with a plan for that last year. And then the other question I have is about the sports being postponed. How was that communicated? There was a lot of chatter around the game being canceled, not postponed. So you don't have to necessarily answer that, but just as we're moving forward, can we make sure our kids understand postponed versus canceled?
Yes, ma'am, we will.
I mean, there was just a lot. And then the last thing I had was time around if I test positive and we don't know, we're not able to trace where that came from. I think we mentioned if it's traceable back to a case there in the building, then they use their own time. But if we can't trace where it came from, then how will our employees know, or what bucket will they have to pull from at that point?
It would be their disability bucket. We can, to a certain level, like, so say if I test positive and then Randy was around me and then he tests positive, he would say that's related to work because it was her and then it was me. But if you're the only person in we don't have a close contact or somebody tests positive, then it's probably, we can't definitively say that it was work exposure. So that's how we've been navigating it. Up until this point, I can look at Ms. Tushman, it hasn't been an issue in regards to whether staff are using their own disability leave or in not being charged to them.
But if I don't have the time in my bucket, does that mean I mean, if we're looking at putting something into place where people are.
If people don't have time in their bucket currently, they are not receiving compensation if they were to test positive. And, I mean, we're not covering it, so they're losing dollars. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you all. Board, I'd encourage you to, again, as you think of questions or information that would be helpful for you as we continue this conversation, obviously we'll keep learning more as news comes out, but please let us know if there's additional information that would be helpful for you all individually and collectively as we continue with this conversation. So thank you, Mr. Linkus, Dr. Stubblefield, thank you for the information tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. And once I've shared the data with Dr. Stubblefield, we will be sharing the survey data with the board, so you have those specifics and all those particulars.
Great, thank you so much. Next on our agenda is an update on safety and security from Chief Horn.
So I recommend the Board of Education accept the update on safety and security as submitted by Henry Horn, Chief of Police, and as recommended by myself, Anna Stubblefield, Superintendent of Schools. And before Chief Horn starts to talk about numbers, I do want to acknowledge publicly that we have had some challenges at a few of our high school, in particular at J.C. Harmon and Wyandotte. I've spoken with staff and students and parents. And this morning, I did meet with Harmon's principal and assistant principal, and we are currently working to be proactive around interventions outside of staffing with security or officers. A portion of Harmon staff did receive restorative practices training. I did speak with KIPCOR, that's who provided the training to our different schools in KCK, and we are looking at proactively training all of Harmon staff. We're looking at sometime in October, so we are working with them so that as we are working to provide the physical safety, we are also giving our staff and students and families, because with the restorative practices, there are layers for each one of those groups, to intervene more strategically around being proactive to avoid some of the situations that our students are engaging in, and to give them an alternative about how to resolve conflict. I also would like to share that all of our staff, when I spoke with student services, do receive trauma-informed training. It's about a 4-hour training. I don't have the specific data, but the student service coordinator believed that anybody who was with the district previously and all new staff did receive that training, and those who have missed it, she's actually doing a training tomorrow, and it could include staff from Harmon. So we are proactively working on other methods of interventions, and this, what Chief Harm is going to focus on, is more around staffing of the physical safety of security officers and security assistants.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Good evening, board members, President Lopez, Madam Vice President, board members, guests, and community members. Quickly want to go over some staffing issues that we have throughout this district with our law enforcement officers, or SROs. Currently, we have 6 high schools, 7 middle schools, and 4 ECCs. We have 6 officers assigned to our high schools. We have 7 of them assigned to our middle schools. And we have 4 that are responders to all 32 buildings of ECCs and elementary schools. We have 1 officer assigned to each of the central office, Fairfax Learning Center, or White Church building, Bridges as well. We have 2 campus officers. Those are campus officers or unarmed police. They're unarmed campus officers from what previously we had. 1 of those are assigned to Harmon, and 1 of those are assigned to Sumner. We also have 7 police officers assigned to the Kansas City, Kansas Public Libraries. Obviously, they used to operate 7 days a week, but they operate 6 days a week now. That's a relief factor because they're open almost 12 hours a day. Moving forward, we also have the 5 supervisors, managers, that rotate throughout the district and rotate through their assigned chain of command or span of control. And 1 sergeant will go through all the high schools, the other will mediate through the middle schools and elementary schools and the other facilities as well, and they also are additional support as needed given any type of event that might come up. Specifically, our school safety associates, these are the members that the board approved here during the 2019 budget, and with that we had obviously 2 assigned to each traditional high school. And currently we have only 1 vacancy, but as we're moving forward, We recently received the approval to hire 5 additional positions. Currently, we have 4 offers out on the table. We'll probably move forward within the month or by the end of the month to have all of those jobs filled. And they will be assigned, 2 additional will be assigned to Wyandotte to support, and 2 additional will be assigned to Harmon, as well as 1 additional will be assigned to Carl Bruce. Obviously, their roles and responsibilities are to support the schools on safety measures. That's all of that included. Visitor access controls, screening and monitoring persons coming into the building at the controlled access point. And then obviously building safety checks and other relative matters and concerns that might be needs or assessments by the school principal. There was a question posed to me if they can intervene with disruption or altercations. Yes, they can. They need the proper training since these could be high intense situations. Obviously, the school district offers a training. It's in ESI, and we found that we had a training gap in that because of COVID and some of the other protocols that we've been absent, some new personnel, and that training will take place within the next 2 weeks for the remainder of the staff, and as soon as we onboard the new staff members, we'll have them trained up as well. With that, that would conclude my report on staffing, and obviously take questions as desired.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, for the information at the beginning of the presentation. Open the floor for questions for Chief Horn.
That's a question.
Ms. Clark?
Chief Horn, can you explain where it says support school on safety measures? Can you just dive into that just a little bit deeper? What does that mean?
So we, as far as the school safety associate, safety measures would be anything, obviously they have a whole line of items that they do in their job description. I just didn't want to bring all those details to you. But
Understood.
Safety measures are anything from our SRP protocols to assisting with checking hallways, monitoring, assisting that. But with the fact that we have 2 of them in the building and we plan on add additional support there, their primary focus is usually at the front door when school is in session in the instructional settings and or in the building and rotating positions for that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Nguyen?
Thank you. So could you help me follow the bouncing ball? When I add the numbers, let's say everything is filled, would I be correct in saying then after 2 weeks, there would be 6 people at Harmon?
So currently right now, we'll just do it this way to make it real easy. Currently right now, they're staffed with 1 SRO, 1 campus officer,
Right,
and 2 SSAs.
right,
We will add an additional 2
correct.
SSAs.
And that adds up to 6.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Now, I asked, so this is no surprise, so folks don't have to get all crazy. Do we have security cameras at all of our facilities?
Yes.
And do we have adequate lighting at all of our facilities? Adequate is surrounding.
I would say you have adequate lighting at your buildings.
Okay, then let me ask like this. Is there lighting around every high school? I mean, every building?
So I'm going to say there's lighting around the buildings, but if you need to have an assessment done, I think that's something that the board can bring forward and we can have a better assessment done, like what we call CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental
Okay.
Design. And we could assist facilities with that, but that usually falls into facilities
Okay,
on maintenance and everything, but I think most of that stuff is current.
but you don't know for a fact.
I don't know exactly without
Okay.
having an assessment.
And then I asked, could we use drones for surveillance? Or,
Could you use drones?
we have drones, correct?
You have drones throughout the school district, yes.
Correct. Last time when I asked, you said they were in the box, they hadn't been taken
That's
out.
correct. They're not for surveillance, ma'am. They would be for educational purposes only.
Can
and
we
stuff like
use
that.
them for surveillance?
You could use them for surveillance at the board's will.
Okay, what would it take? Training?
Sure.
Would it take additional training?
And licensing for it, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, Dr. Stubblefield, we have them, and I'll put it like this, respectfully. It didn't take 4 votes to purchase them. I'm not asking for 4 votes to investigate if we can use them for other uses. And that's all for now, Mr.
Thank you,
Lopez.
Dr.
Thank
Nguyen.
you.
No, thank you, ma'am. We'll research that and give it over to the superintendent for a report back. No
Thank you.
problem.
Dr. Yeager?
Hi, yes, I have a couple of questions. One, we did ask for how many students were at each high school. Based upon the head count that we received of 820 students at Schlegel, Harmon, 1,190, Sumner, about 1,000, Washington, 1,127, and then at Wyandotte, 1,840. Based upon the numbers that you just gave us, it appears that Harmon has about 700 less students than Wyandotte, yet they're getting the same amount of staffing. Is that correct?
I'm going to say they have one extra person right now currently, that's correct. And that's because that's that campus officer position that's unarmed.
So I would like to request, and we kind of talked about borders last time because it's concerning that there's 700 more students at Wyandotte with similar amount of staffing, health, and security. So I would like to ask, this may relate to safety and security, but can we do an investigation on how we can help with enrollment numbers possibly being spread? And this is not to you, Chief Horn, this is to Dr. Stubblefield. Can we look at methods on how we can help decrease the number of students there at Wyandotte so they can be more evenly balanced across the district? I know for New Chelsea, we asked some parents to volunteer on who may want to be transitioned to other schools. So I'm asking that we would be able to look at that to see how we can balance out that area for Wyandotte. Also, I would like to know what ratio is being used to determine how many student to security officer or level is going on. It doesn't quite appear that it's balanced across the way. So you have maybe one more extra at Wyandotte, but that's 700 more students. And so the concern is during passing period, those hallways are jam-packed. Students are everywhere. Parents have complained. You know, administration leaders are saying that we are truly overfilled at this school. And although there's more resource officers, something is still going on with the high attendance of enrollment based on the report that we're looking at.
I appreciate that. You want me to respond to the national standard or?
You can.
No, you're.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes, Dr. Nguyen and then Ms. Page.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Help me understand roaming. Is there a defined schedule? Is there a job assignment? What is roaming?
Yes, ma'am. Those are the managers, the sergeants. So obviously, their span of control is every officer at a high school or every officer at a middle school. So they would have the ability to go through those school buildings as needed or respond to incidents as needed to take control of the situation as a manager should.
Okay,
So they
so
can actually.
it's only if an incident occurs?
No, they do it daily. They do it daily.
Okay, so there is a defined schedule, a defined job, you know, I mean, if you have 5, they're not.
That's correct.
Driving.
They go through their buildings and check on their staff daily.
So there's buildings assigned to each of these 5?
Yes, ma'am. High schools for one, middle schools for another.
Oh, I'm sorry, did not understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Page.
No, I just wanted to say, I've heard from quite a few parents from Harmon and Wyandotte, and as well as former graduates, and everyone's a little disheartened about all the fights and things, and they just feel that the security we have now is not enough. And again, I don't want to be misquoted. I'm not saying bring the National Guard, but at Wyandotte, from talking to some of the teachers, their concern was it's not a problem in the classroom, but it's just the passing period. And they need some help. You don't have enough teachers. And we don't have enough security to help control things. Because you can't learn in chaos. And a student should not be afraid to come to school. I went to Wyandotte. It's embarrassing. We already have to deal with all the drama that we're urban schools. And then they have to come and deal with this. So they deserve to be safe, every student. I don't care where you go. I'm not saying we're not doing that, but I think we need more. It's good we're gonna have the listening tour. We gotta talk. We gotta bring parents in, community people, but we need some order. And I didn't say that the National Guard, I'm not saying, and I have a lot of respect for our officers. I was there last year when that lady ran over the other lady, and I watched how our officers were treated. They were hit, they were kicked, they were cursed at, and they were, just controlling themselves, trying to control the situation. And they deserve medals for what they have to go through. And they're not going in there to hurt the kids, because a lot of them are graduates from our schools. And they genuinely care. But we got to make sure everybody's safe. And I think we need more than what we have, especially at Harmon and Wyandotte, because it's getting old. There's a fight. There's another fight. After I made the statement at the last board meeting, there were 2 more fights. So we got to do something. To me, for Harmon and Wyandotte, that's not enough.
So, and I guess a follow-up to, and thank you, Ms. Page, a follow-up to Ms. Page's question, Chief, as you fill these positions and as you get fully staffed with what you're adding here, have you looked and do you feel, and I guess touching on Dr. Yeager's question as well, is your staffing appropriate? Have you looked at?
I think we need to take obviously a deeper dive, and Ms. Brown Page, I appreciate those comments you made. I got great staff, and I'm definitely going to take them back. They need to hear that more frequently, especially all the time here. And I think we always have the ability to change given our situations. So I'm passionate about this safety, and I'm concerned as well, but we have to be flexible. We understand that. So if we have to be flexible, we can always change how we staff things.
Yeah, and I appreciate, you and I have had several conversations about that balance, right, in terms of bringing in more officers versus what other methods of safety and security measures and what else that could look like besides armed officers. So I really appreciate your intentionality in terms of how you look at that and what that might, and the training that's provided to your officers as well. So just thank you for that pragmatic approach. I know, Ms. Clark, you got a comment?
No, I
Okay.
just was going to say I agree, and Ms. Page, I agree with, I'm at Washington every morning, and so I agree with the chaos, and what I don't want is our officers to feel defeated. I mean, there are tons of kids to their bodies, but then I also want to make sure we're focusing on the right thing. I know we're targeting the fights, but is it the fights or is it something deeper? So what should we really be targeting? What should your officers be trained to really be handling? And what behaviors should they really be addressing? Because I myself have watched several behaviors be ignored, and I know it's from exhaustion and defeat. And so there's a lot of other things that are taking place in our schools, and I know I've talked to you, and how can those be addressed along with the fighting?
Those are excellent concerns, and I believe that's exactly what the superintendent brought up, and I think we're going to be taking a very deep dive into that at cabinet level and at other levels of our organization.
Yeah, and I think to that point, that what Officer Horn, Chief Horn did share, the CSI, the training that our specialized staff and what we previously should be given to all of our administrators, and then there is an initial part that every staff should be receiving. That basics is about de-escalation and addressing those things that you just highlighted. And so we just need to go back and make sure that we systematize that training, because that's just the baseline training, along with when we say we're training Harmon staff around restorative practices, that will include the officers as well, so they'll know what the staff is doing during that time. So I think it's some of those baseline trainings that my assumption is through COVID and not being in that, and then some of the transition, some things just got lost, but now that we know that it didn't occur, we can make sure that it's systematized and done with intentionality.
Thank you. Couple more questions, Dr. Yeager and then Dr. Nguyen.
I have a question. I don't know if this needs to be a motion or not, But I think that we're Band-Aiding the problem, especially at Wyandotte, with its overcrowding. They have over 700 more students than the other high schools. I think a resolution or something that really truly needs to be brought to the board is how can we decrease the numbers at Wyandotte so that there can be more control and focus and appropriate class sizes within Wyandotte. So I don't know if it needs to be a motion to have a research or recommendations brought back to the board as to how we can get Wyandotte closer to the amount of students at other schools, maybe decrease it by 400 or 350 to get them less students and more students spread out over the rest of the high schools.
Dr. Yeager, I will say, and as far as if it's a motion, that's up to the board. We do have an upcoming report. I did meet with RSP. We were looking, they're going to give an update post the pandemic around our boundaries and those areas of schools throughout the system that are out of alignment with all the schools at the various level. And that is something that will probably be coming forth in October or November. I just need to check with Mr. Covington, but that was something that was already, that the board, I think, according to RSP and Mr. Covington, was exploring before the schools were fully remote during the pandemic. So that was something that we were planning to pick back up.
Is it possible to get it at the 22nd meeting? Because I feel like it's a ticking time bomb. All of these students in one area, like Wanda just said, there were multiple fights at the school, not even fights. When you have a lot of people in close proximity, we're just waiting for something to happen. And I truly feel like we need to be proactive and start looking at solutions to be made rather than belabor it.
Yeah, so it is not possible for the 28th meeting. Historically, if the board has dealt with boundaries and people leaving their schools, that is a longer discussion because of the unintended consequences that come with it. If it's a board goal to be in place for next school year, that will be something that we can put on an accelerated timeline, but it would not be possible to get all the information and communicate effectively to families that will be impacted. I don't know, and what we could gather for information to the board is to see how many students currently at Wyandotte are on, I think what we call permits. Here they're called permits. We can get that total number, and that could be some baseline information because that will let you know how many kids are actually, they're within Wyandotte boundaries versus how many are on permits. And that will be a good place for us to start. That information we can have for the 28th board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Dr. Nguyen?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Lopez. Just a kind of question to you, Dr. Stubblefield. I'm sure this is in your thinking as you say that you will start visiting these schools. Each of these schools have a community, and there are mentors, I think, waiting to be welcomed in. We're responsible and we've got to act. The board appears to be just not acting, just not responding. I mean, the discussion is important because the community is like, what are you all doing? It looks like we're not doing anything. So the conversation is a must. But also, there is a level of responsibility for parents that I think is your message to them, but also welcoming mentors from the community of those high schools, middle schools, that can also help. And I know you've included that in your agenda.
Absolutely, and I will say there have been several community members and mentors that have reached out to me directly connected to the different high schools, and we just need to, we don't necessarily, and maybe I shouldn't say we don't, I don't know what our process is to allow them to be in there and to provide like the proper training and that kind of thing, so that's something that I'm navigating, but there have been several community members that have reached out to me that are willing and waiting, and we just need to figure out how do we include them in our systems to do that, to provide mentorship to our students.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Page?
And I know we gotta cut it off, and I know we're doing what we can, but I still think we need to add 3 more people until we figure out what to do with this crowd at Wyandotte to give them some help. They don't have the teachers, so somebody has to help out there in those hallways. And if we had, you added 2, but it would help if they had 3 more to make it 5 and you know, to make it 9 in addition to what they already have to help with that flow, especially when they're in the hallways.
I guess, and I think something that might be helpful is, Chief, you know, as you're looking at your staffing, if you have recommendations or thoughts to say, hey, we are understaffed, a concern would be, Ms. Page, to just start to add is that if they're not needed, then do we reduce, and then now people are losing jobs. So I think looking and evaluating the staffing and what's necessary to help make these improvements to keep our students safe, and I think it's a combination of things, right? It's having officers, having community members, and I hear what you're saying, Ms. Page, and I don't disagree. I just want to make sure that when we do it, if we are adding, if it's, you know, if that's the will, that's what we'll do, but just making sure that we do it in an appropriate and thoughtful approach when we do that.
I get that, but we better be careful because we've been blessed. And I'm just afraid if something really blows up, and each day it's more and more drama. And we can't just sit here and pretend. And I don't want to put a Band-Aid on it. We want to resolve it. But you do have to get things under control. Can't learn in chaos.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so we're going to continue this conversation. Chief, thank you so much for the information. I think to everyone's point, we're all in this together, and you know, we want to make sure that our staff, our community knows, to your point, Ms. Page, that we hear you and we see what's going on, and we want to address this. That's why we wanted to have this conversation tonight. This item was added so that we could publicly discuss what's going on and how can we find solutions to this. But Dr. Nguyen, I couldn't agree more that this is a community effort, and how we find what's at the root causes of these, and how we involve our community in loving our students and making sure that they're cared for in a very trauma and culturally sensitive way. And we have some things that we're doing to do that, but couldn't agree with you more that this is a community effort for us to keep our students safe, to love on our students, and to make sure that our students, families, and staff know that they are being supported. It's been a challenge, I know, and we hear that and we see that, but we are working to try to make that happen. So thank you for your comments on that as well.
I appreciate the passion, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. So next on our agenda is our executive session, and we will entertain a motion to recess to executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of the parties involved under COMA, going in at 7:30 for 10 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't think there's any staff that's needed for either executive session, so staff, you're free to go. Yeah.
No, you got to sit.
into open session, please?
So move.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Thank you. We're back in open session. Now entertain a motion to go into our second executive session, to recess to executive session for consultation with the attorney on matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under COMA, going in at 7:44 for 10 minutes.
So move.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Janie Humphries,
Yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Thank you. Motion to come back into open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Great, thank you. We're back in open session again. Thank you, board, Dr. Stubblefield and staff, and guests. Thank you. Have a good night. This meeting is adjourned.